And we are starting live. Let's see if it works.
Good morning, Marty, Sonia.
Good morning.
You're supposed to all be muted right now. I don't know what happened. Okay, mute all. All right.
I'm muting myself.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. No.
I already did that.
Okay.
Okay, so people get to see all of our discussion as we
Yeah.
get set up here. So today is
Yes.
July
Yes.
19th, mid-July 2020. And we're talking today about communing with Source or communing with Spirit. And this is such an important topic right now. I'm going to start by sharing what Ernest Holmes had to say about this in one of his daily treatments. He starts with a discussion and then does an affirmative prayer, but it's entitled, I Enjoy the Companionship of God. And the Bible quote is one that's interpreted to be when the Holy Spirit was sent to us. It is, and I will pray the Father, and he shall give you another comforter, that he may abide with you forever. That's John 14:16. And that's when Jesus was preparing to, to not be there anymore. And that's what he told his disciples. So that comforter is often described as the Holy Spirit that's there to comfort you all the time. So Ernest Holmes says, communion with the Spirit is one of the greatest privileges of life. By communion with God, we do not mean telling the infinite what to do or how to do it, for that is talking at God rather than communing with God. By communion, we mean silently entering into divine harmony and beauty until we feel that harmony and beauty in our own souls, in our own minds. For instance, if you find yourself distraught and mentally upset, and you follow the simple practice of communing with peace, you will find that peace enters into you. You do this by dropping all confusion from your mind and thinking about peace, by dwelling on its meaning and feeling that you are breathing it into yourself until it floods your whole being with harmony. This is real communion. Not telling peace what it ought to do or be, but entering into its spirit silently, quietly, and alone. And so it is with love or joy or any other attribute of the divine. We must commune by listening and feeling this presence until the presence is real to us. This is the very essence of communion. And his prayer is this: God is my companion. It is impossible for me to be lonely or alone, for wherever I go, the one presence will accompany me. I have an infinite companion who goes with me wherever I go. I have partnership with the infinite that is steady, strong, and certain. This same presence I feel in everyone else, the one companion of all. I am guided by this presence. I am guarded by it. I am kept in the shadow of its strength. I am fed by the bounty of its love. I am guided by its wisdom. This presence is closer to me than my breath, nearer to me than my hands or feet. Therefore, I have no sense of aloneness, no feeling of isolation, because all the presence there is my companion. In this companionship, there is love and beauty. There is peace and joy. There is happiness and success, today and forevermore. And so it is.
Beautifully written.
So we wanted to share that because we've had a particularly difficult week this week, and I knew this is what we wanted to talk about, and it was very difficult for me to achieve. I find little tiny moments of it, my sister was diagnosed with COVID-19 this week. She is 72 years old, lives alone in Idaho, so no family there with her. Tried to talk her into moving down here for years, and she won't. She loves Idaho. And she's diabetic, has been diabetic for 30 years. And she doesn't watch the news. She is a big unity person, and she really thinks positively. She does not watch the news. So she really doesn't know how dangerous this is for her to get it, which is probably helpful for her, very scary for me, because like she doesn't get it and she doesn't know the symptoms. And so yesterday we tried to get her to go to the hospital. So she called 911 eventually, after she got all her stuff together. And that took hours. And so we were just on pins and needles. Number one, to make sure she got to the hospital in time. She was getting confused. She was, not remembering to eat, not remembering to take her medicine. She's diabetic. A lot of problems that were really scary for me. And she made it to the hospital, and they diagnosed her, and they examined her totally. They diagnosed her with
Pneumonia.
viral pneumonia, COVID pneumonia, and sent her home. And said they needed the bed for people who were sicker than she is. And, I wanted her in the hospital so I could quit worrying about her. So I would know she would be given her meds and have enough fluids and maybe treated with remdesivir or whatever, and, watched, because there's nobody at home to watch her. And so I had a great deal of difficulty finding peace. I did try, I've tried to commune with the peace of God, and I would get little tiny respites. But our mind is so designed to solve problems that it keeps wanting to go back to the problem. And but what can you do? What can you do? What should be done? And I would remind myself to go back and commune with spirit and be there with the peace of God, because I know it's always there waiting for me. But it's just really difficult to immerse yourself in it when drama and trauma is going on around you.
Yeah, I walked around all day yesterday with the same struggle, trying to figure out how to make a connection, a better connection. And a couple of things occurred to me that I think relate to all of us. The first thing is that we watch a lot of TV typically, and we watch TV to get information and to learn more about what we can do, what we're coping, we're managing. But also, what I thought about when I was watching it was, everything on TV is designed for us, about us, to inform, coerce, suggest, move us, motivate us. It's all about us. It's not about spirit. It's just about us. In fact, it has to be about us because the sponsors want to make sure that it's about us. So since TV is about us, it's really the antithesis of being connected to spirit. And I wouldn't even have thought of that, but one of the things I did, which I thought was extraordinary, and I want to invite everybody else to do it, is I went online and found the Deerfield, we live in Deerfield, the Deerfield Beach ocean cam.
Ocean camera.
Yeah, and the camera is constantly photographing what's underneath the pier. And I sat there and I watched and I realized this is another world. This is the world that isn't about me. This is a world that's operating beneath the surface of the ocean. We saw a shark, we saw rays, we saw hundreds of fish of all different types, all learning to, or all managing to go with the current. And suddenly I realized that I spend too much of my time in the world that's about me, or that I'm supposed to relate to, and not enough about the world that I'm not related to. That is the world that I don't have a direct connection with physically. And that's the spiritual world. And the most spiritually uplifting thing I did yesterday and this morning, I had a hard time pulling myself away from it, was spending time underwater in another world. And I thought, my goodness, maybe if you're having a really hard time, you need to give up everything. If you've got a computer, and go to the beach cam and just watch the ocean for a while, or watch underneath the ocean for a while, to get yourself away. And I got to tell you what happened the first 10 minutes that I watched. I was looking for something good or interesting. I wasn't looking for the fish that were there. I was looking for the fish I might want to see.
That might be.
Yeah,
might be
the good fish, the special fish, the ones that were there for me. It took me a good 10 minutes to get to the point where I was suddenly in the ocean with the fish, experiencing what that was like. And then I had this epiphany that I every now and get one, And I realized that our lives with God are like our Wi-Fi connection. Some of us are hardwired to God. And that's because we've been practicing connecting for a very long time. And because we've been practicing connecting for a very long time, we can be in the middle of a storm, in the middle of a war, or in the middle of conflict, close our eyes, and that connection is already there. For some of us, our connection to God is more like Wi-Fi, and that you tune into it and it disappears on you and it seems to fade. You can't get connected. You wonder what's wrong. And you even go so far as to wonder, is there really a Wi-Fi? Does Wi-Fi really exist? And the more you struggle with it, the more tenuous the connection, and the more you doubt that that connection is listening to you or cares about you or has you anywhere in its heart or soul.
Is it even there?
Is it even there? Yeah. So in the middle of the worst struggle, the worst thing you can do is turn on your Wi-Fi and find out you're not really connected. But I think what this has shown me this week in particular is the necessity of setting the condition for us to be able to connect. And the condition may be a premeditative state. Like for me, it would be watching the ocean long enough that I don't drown in the stuff that's going on in the news, and that I can swim with the fish for a little while in a world that isn't out to get me, or that I'm not being told how I'm supposed to be in. And that precondition could then allow me to, when I close my eyes and I ask for Source to speak to me, Source can speak to me. Source can connect with me.
Yeah, I love that metaphor. It's a great example, because we actually last week had so much trouble connecting with our Facebook Live. It just wouldn't do it wirelessly, that this week we ordered and got wire so that we don't have to depend on Wi-Fi. So it is a great analogy. You know, when you're hardwired to God, it means when you practice connecting a lot, it's easy to connect. But sometimes, especially when we're having difficulty, or we're frightened, or things are upsetting, as they are now. They are now for so many people. They cannot keep their normal life. Some people, like Jeffrey and Sonia, are up in a little paradise in New York and just enjoying every minute of it, which is great. Nice, safe place. But some of us, I've had more health challenges with my family since COVID started than I've ever had in my life. Scary, scary stuff. And I would like to report my son is doing great, by the way. I had a scan and he is all clear of any more tumors. So that was really good news. We did happy dance about that. But and he's halfway, 6 months into his treatment. No, he's 3 months into his 6 months of chemo. So, but it's been hard to connect as much as I like to. I do it every time, first thing in the morning and last thing at night, to visualize them in their ideal state, visualize me in my ideal state. And that's a little bit of reprieve, but it's not quite going all the way to connecting with Source. Because when you connect with Source, you just experience the peace of God. I have a quote I put on the email this week with this title. It's from A Course in Miracles that explains it beautifully. And it says, the still infinity of endless peace surrounds you gently in its soft embrace, so strong and quiet, tranquil in the might of its creator. Nothing can intrude upon the sacred Son of God within. So nothing can intrude upon the sacred Son of God within each one of us. When we can get there and remember it and feel it. Yes.
But that's why the practice becomes so critical, not the experience, but the practice. Because when we're practiced in the morning before we get out of bed, or at night when we go to bed, having 10 minutes or 15 minutes or whatever time we spend, or however that works, when that's a practice, it becomes so automatic that then when you're under stress, you don't have to work to connect. The connection's already there.
Yeah,
the connection. And one of our problems is, I remember a long time ago when I was a Lutheran, and the minister used to say, most of us here today have a fire engine religion. And I said, what is that? And he said, a fire engine religion is you only go to God when there's a fire. And you call out the fire trucks and you want all kinds of magic and wonder to happen. But the truth is, you're not dressed for it. You don't have a hook and ladder. You don't have a hose. You don't have anything, because you don't even have that faith until it's time, and now you want to plug it in. And so the practice becomes important. And I would suggest, as and everybody here probably already knows, but practice connecting when you don't need to, when there's nothing you want to accomplish, when there's no good or bad that's on the horizon. It's just, I need the practice.
Yeah.
And that practice then makes going to source an automatic connection. And I don't know about any of you, but I wish it didn't happen for me, but I spend too much of my time doubting that there's anything anywhere other than me. And, you know, it doesn't seem fair, it doesn't seem reasonable, but it is what it is. It just happens that way. We're having some split screen stuff.
So, yes. So, and thank God that I have meditated as long as I have, so that I have some way of knowing that. But I do find that in crisis, and I considered it a crisis yesterday to try to get her in the hospital, but it is harder to do at those times. So the more we practice, the better it is. And
you know, it reminded me of recently on, and you've probably seen it on the news, there was a policeman who was called when a baby wasn't breathing, a little 3-week-old baby. Yeah. And he saved the baby's life. He cleared the airway so the baby could breathe, and the mother was hysterical and just literally passing out on the ground out of fear and terror. And when they asked the officer later, what was it? How did you get to do this? He said, it was a practice I had. I had practiced all the training and the practice. He said I was able to automatically, and I think that's a great example of a crisis managed well as a result of the practice that we have managed. And I know years ago when I worked on the crisis line, and I dealt with people who were suicidal and all kinds of crises, people would ask me, how is it that you're so calm? Why aren't you getting upset when somebody tells you they want to kill themselves? And I said, well, I'm upset about that they would kill themselves, but I can't be upset like you are about it because I wouldn't be able to be effective. Mm-hmm. I can care, but I can't care in a way that impairs me. We have to, if we can, connect the source in a way that doesn't impair us. That is, we don't go there because, please help me now. We go there because, you know, I want to go there. I want to be connected to my family.
Right. So one of the things we were doing in the midst of texting continuously, is she at the hospital yet? Is she at the hospital yet? Because she wasn't in communication with us, was watch the Global Coherence meditation. And you all got an invitation to it, but most of you probably go, what the heck is that? Well, it's an organization that is an amalgamation, and we joined, the Center for Spiritual Living Palm Beach is joined as a sponsor, as a supporter, as part of it. They're part of Resonance Science, part of Heart Math, and just really is its own spiritual thing. But the purpose is this idea. We are all spiritual beings, and we have an energy body that affects everybody. You can say, it wasn't Bob's sister who was sick yesterday, but I can tell you he didn't have much peace with just my energy field, because he's affected by it. We're all affected by each other's energy field. And at this time in the planet, so many people are unhappy, upset, fearful, in not enoughness, you know, the demonstrations that are happening, which are timely and great, but it's still causing a lot of upset. Crime is up. With all of that, the energy that is going out for the energy field of our planet is very chaotic. And so what this organization is doing is purposefully having all of us spiritual folks, or as many who can find out about it and join, participate at the same time with a meditation, stressing heart, starting with heart coherence, which just means your heart is peaceful, feeling love, centered. So that goes out to the planetary field also, so that we bathe our planet in the vibration of wellness, wholeness, love, peace. And I really think that's very important right now. And it's a lot more constructive than us doing our own little dramas individually. You know, we are participating in creating something new for our planet and something we want to see. So I urge you, I'll keep posting those when they're going to have one of these. And just click on the link and see if you join. It was difficult for me to watch because it was about 2 hours, and I would just go back and forth between texting and watching, but it did help keep me calm. You know, because there are all kinds of problems that arise that you don't even think about once you have COVID. You know, nobody wants to come to your house, for one thing. Nobody wants to transport you in their car, for another. You know, so there are problems that arise when someone is on their own. So, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, you lost me a bit.
I lost you with the trouble.
Well, I think the most important piece of all of that, for me anyway, is that we are all connected. We all share a part of the soul, the greater soul. We are all connected, and so that what happens to any one of us happens to all of us, even if we don't know it. And we know that, you know, when, and I was struck with this recently. I've been doing, my coaching practice has been increasing, which has been wonderful. I gave up my job at the hospital because of the COVID, and now all of a sudden I'm getting people that want me to do some coaching. And after 50 years of mental health counseling, why not? So, but what I was struck with the coaching that I did this week was the advice that I might have given or could have given or did give wasn't as important to any of the people that I was coaching than them hearing from me that I believe in them. And that being believed in connected us in a way that had them feel the courage to move forward. And I thought, wow, what an interesting thing to be believed in brings forth the courage and the strength into who you are in the equation, as opposed to, if I give you the right answer, things will be good. Mm-hmm. And I was so struck with that people are asking for answers while they're actually asking to be believed in. They're asking to be joined with and connected to and cared about. And answers are important, and strategies and all the things that I have learned that help people overcome and walk through the obstacles, that's important. But you know what's more important than that is the level of intention that you have to be there for the person and care about them from a heart space. And I already know this, but I keep forgetting it. I keep thinking that, well, somebody will call me because they want an answer to a problem, and I've got lots of answers, or I'm really good at what I do. And that's why I get to do the coaching. And the truth is, what I hear again and again is, I come back because I like what you have to say, but more importantly than that, I really get that you're there for me, that you really care, that you really believe in me. I wish that we could believe in ourselves sometimes as much as the people that love us believe in us.
Oh, well, or believe in source, because, you know, what I'm getting for me out of this lesson is I don't have control. I can't control this situation.
Well, don't tell me that.
And, you know, that's what Ernest Holmes was talking about in that first part I read. Our talking to God is not telling God what we want to see happening or what we want it to do for us, but it's just connecting. So I have no control. And I need to just know that. And yet it's difficult to say, well, how can I help? And still, no, I have no control over it. But it's an important lesson. And also to know that whatever happens is okay. You know, whatever happens, whatever is for the best eventually. So I need to remind myself and stay centered in that. Even though it's difficult when you have a loved one who does need help.
I remember going on a long road trip, and about a 2,000-mile road trip, and feeling secure because if there was a breakdown, you know, I had a spare tire, and I had AAA, and I could get help if I needed it, and that made the trip a really good trip. And then I got home, and I opened up the trunk to take out my luggage, and I realized the tire was flat. I did my 2,000-mile trip without a spare tire. And I thought about what a difference it would have made had I taken off knowing I didn't have a spare tire. And I think the spare tire is a consciousness. It is not having air in the tire. And the truth is, when Judith and I broke down, I think it was in Utah, and the car broke down, we were in the middle of nowhere, a beautiful nowhere, with no cars and no traffic. And somebody drove by, stopped out of the blue, took us to their house,
Took me to a phone.
Took you to a
This
phone,
was
yeah.
on the day before cell phones.
I mean, we had no phone, and whatever was wrong with the car, we couldn't fix ourselves. And then we were in the middle of nowhere. And if this isn't an example that we're not alone, I don't know what is, because the appearance was, I guess we're going to be living in Idaho or in Utah now, you know, because it did look
in
like,
a beautiful valley.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, we spent some time when we couldn't do anything, just going down this beautiful stream and just enjoying the beauty of this valley.
we had a Mercury Sable, which I finally named the Not So Able Sable because we went through 3 transmissions on that one trip, and it was just one breakdown and then one breakthrough after another. And I often think we can't have a breakthrough until we have a breakdown and begin to look at what are we really connected to. I'm not sure. Had yesterday been a wonderful day and had we spent our time at the beach and had fun, that I would have been motivated to go online and look at the cam, or the beach cam, and that I would have fallen in love with everything happening under the surface of the water that I didn't even know existed. I probably wouldn't have been motivated to do that if things were as good as they can be, and sometimes are. So sometimes adversity and struggle leads us to exploring that opens us up. And I think possibly that a breakdown is the way to a breakthrough.
Well, and also what he didn't tell you is this man that picked me up. Bob stayed with the car and he drove me to a phone. And, you know, coming from Florida, we have a sense of mistrust here, especially with strangers. And so I was so pleased that this man picked me up. And then we were almost to the phone, which was like a 20-minute drive. And I looked around and there was an infant in the back seat. And I thought, wow, you picked me up with your baby here? He said, sure, yeah. And I think he must have been one of those nice Mormon families, you know, just salt of the earth kind of people. And it was just what I needed when we felt so stranded and out of control. There was a human being there to help us. And AAA did come haul us to a city.
Yeah. So we did have some support.
So,
but imagine, if you will, that there is that wonderful person in spirit hanging out right now with you, in you, next to you, around you, advocating for you, supporting and encouraging you, and that your tire is not flat, and that your Wi-Fi connection is really, really good. And that if knowing that and being willing to go in that direction can change everything, because there's often the problem, and then there's how we feel when we give up, when we think the problem can't be solved. And the giving up shuts the door, as opposed to the problem is the problem, but I'm still connected. The problem is the problem, but I don't have to be the problem. I can walk around, I can see another world, I can look further. As a writer, I spend half of my time hoping I'll have something to write about, and the other time, the rest of my time trying to capture the wonderful stuff that shows up in my mind. But what's interesting is I get very little to write about when I'm sitting at the computer. I get most of what I want to write about when I go meditate and say, I can't do this anymore. I mean, I can't come up with the right thing to say. I'm not that clever. And I'll be laying there doing my meditation, and all of a sudden, boom. And I think, wow, why don't I know this more easily? But I'm convinced that because I'm a writer that I should be able to write. Sometimes being a writer simply means that you allow yourself to go to the space inside of you that's open and available, where everything that needs to get written has already been written, and all you have to do is record it.
So with this idea of connecting, I'm going to start a class this Thursday that is a Joe Dispenza class on becoming supernatural. So that is all about, you know, doing wonderful meditations that actually change your life, your circumstances. So if anybody's interested in inquiring about that class, you just write me an email or give me a phone call. Our phone number is on the website. So is the email.
That's also where you can donate to keep this ministry functioning and supported. And I want to give a special thank you to something that happened. We got a nice donation from somebody that I know is on my Facebook, but I couldn't connect with them to say thank you, so I can thank them in public. But it's really something to start receiving donations from all over the country from people that I don't know. who simply want to share their caring.
Yeah.
And we thank you for that. That's huge, because this ministry is not, it's not free to us. It's free for us to do, but it's not free. So thank you so much for the support that you give us.
And we're about ready to wrap this up now. So would you close with a closing
I sure would.
prayer?
Nice to see you, Renee. Seeing all my Facebook people here. So we don't come together because we already are together. We are together in a profound, wonderful, spiritual way. We are connected deeply, wonderfully, powerfully. We are connected, and all the work that needs to get done on this planet right now, we are actually doing in our consciousness by bringing love to everything that we do. So today I affirm that we are a divine expression of love. We are love at its very, very best and the very highest. I affirm today with each of you that we are together as a family in love, with love, being loving, and that there's nothing higher or greater that we can do than to love. And so we say thank you, and we know that it is true, and we say together, and so it is. Thank you, one and all. For those of you that are on Facebook, I'm going to post this, and we didn't have any breaks this time, probably because we got a new modem.